Welcome to the Reality Check podcast. I'm Zachary Phillips. In today's episode, I'm interviewing Toby Carr. He's a friend of mine who had a spinal surgery at the age of 26. And this process from, feeling sore and getting the surgery took place within about a month and a half. So we delved deep into the mental state before, during, and after the surgeries, how he was feeling, finding out that he might become a paraplegic, finding out the risks and all of that sort of stuff to the recovery process, how to deal with not being able to lift more than 2 kilograms and all of that sort of stuff. We talk about the need for support, the need for therapy in your life, and how to sort of deal with such a major setback and still move forward and still make something of your life and move beyond the identity of being, quote, the guy that's had spinal surgery. Towards the end of the podcast, we talk about writing, the writing process, using writing as a form of therapy, and then we get into Toby's most recent blog about personal protection. It's a bit of a political discussion about some current affairs that are happening right now, but I think the key is that if we look at current events with a nuance and go beyond the black and white sort of shallow approach and go deep on issues, we'll come to a greater understanding of them, because only by going deep can we really explore all the different aspects. I think you'll really enjoy this podcast. It was great to listen to and discuss with Toby and to get a bit of a follow-up to the Share Your Story post that he did a year ago. I'll chuck the links to that story and all of the links that I mentioned throughout the interview below. So yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. Thanks. So I've got Toby here on the podcast. A little while ago, about a year ago, you wrote a Share Your Story piece entitled Spinal Surgery at Age 26. Now, just to give a bit of backstory, we are training. We trained at Krav Maga together, and then we are doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu together. Mm-hmm. And then
more than me at this point, but
all of a sudden, you had to stop training very abruptly because of the aforementioned spinal surgery. So let's just give a little bit of story or backstory into that and
go from there.
Yeah.
So I woke up with what felt like a severe trapped hair on my left side. I've torn muscles before. This was unlike anything I'd ever felt, though. The pain didn't subside. It started to move around my back. So I went to the doctor a few times. Third visit to the doctor, he decided it was time to order an MRI. He ordered the MRI for me on a Monday. I got it on a Tuesday. Friday morning, he called me up at 9 a.m. and was like, I need you in here now. Got there about 11 a.m. And he said, he essentially called me in and said that I had a disc extrusion at C6, C7, which is like the bottom of your neck. Now, what an extrusion is it's a hole in your disc. It's not a bulge. And the spinal fluid, the disc fluid in the disc leaks into your spinal cord. So at this point, basically a quarter of my spinal cord was disc fluid.
So what's the risk of that moving forward from there?
Any small bump, like a whiplash in a car accident, falling over, hitting a rock, could land me in a wheelchair.
So like if you trip up, you could be in a wheelchair.
Essentially, yeah, that's the danger. No one knows exactly specifically what the risks are, but that's the total risk. The unusual thing about this specific injury is that it's normally caused by compression, and from what I can recall, the only compressions I've ever felt were getting stacked in jiu-jitsu, for instance.
Yeah.
But there was no incident that was like, that's an injury, like that's where I did it. Like there's no way to know how I actually did this.
So you just had the pain, went and saw the doctor, all of a sudden you now need spinal surgery. And exactly. What was the progression of the pain onset to seeing the doctor to getting the surgery? Like how much of a time difference was that?
Probably, I can't remember exactly, probably between 5 and 6 weeks.
5 and 6 weeks.
Yeah, I probably, as you know, we all ignore injuries from time to time. I probably ignored it to a degree for a while, but there was one morning specifically where I woke up, I was like, shit, something's wrong.
You got to do something.
I got to do something about this. So it was probably from that point to actually seeing my GP, him calling me back in and being like, there's an issue, was probably about 3 or 4 weeks. And then the period from, he then sent me that afternoon to a neurosurgeon, who then called in another neurosurgeon, and then I called another neurosurgeon. So I spoke to 3 neurosurgeons that day. From that point in time to actually getting surgery was probably another 3 or 4 weeks.
So within about, let's say, like a month and a half, you've gone from a bit of pain to getting the surgery done.
Being in the operating theatre.
Yeah. So I was training with you during that time, but obviously there would be that massive... I couldn't imagine the change of emotions that would go through. I imagine it would be something akin to potentially like almost... I've heard that people, when they go through an injury or suffer a disability or a loss, it's similar to like a grieving process, in the sense you need to grieve for what you can and can't do, or grieve for the potential. And obviously there was a change that had to happen in your life, at least in that short term, and then moving forward there's that unknown. And you get spinal surgery, it might fix it, or you might wake up quadriplegic.
The first thing I did when I woke up from the anesthesia, and I remember clearly doing this, is I looked down at my feet and wiggled my toes.
Thank God.
That was the first thing I did. Even though the neurosurgeon specifically said to me, I'm not going to cut your spinal cord. Like, he was very reassuring. He was actually a great neurosurgeon.
See, I like the reassurance. Yeah. Like, you don't want him to be like, oh, I might.
Yeah.
But things go wrong.
If you're that close, who knows? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, what I want to drill down upon a little bit, if you're comfortable, is the fact that you're 26. This isn't something that strikes me as a young person's issue. Not that, like, I say that and then now I'm thinking about it, like, if someone's 50, 60, 70, 80, the thought of quadriplegia is still terrifying.
Yeah, still horrifying.
But it just feels subjectively a bit more intense for someone younger.
The only word I can think of is terrifying. Like, I like words and I like their impact. But, like, it just sums it up. Like, I remember leaving the neurosurgeon, and I was actually sitting in there, and I asked him what the worst case scenario was, and his immediate reaction, didn't even think, his immediate reaction was, worst case scenario is that you'll lose the use of your legs and have limited use of your hands and arms. Like, just straight away. That's what he said. And I was like, okay.
From the surgery or from a lack of surgery? Was that...
No, just worst case. Anything, surgery or not surgery, worst case scenario is that could happen. I think I asked him in the context of not getting the surgery, but that's the worst. Either way, that was the worst case scenario.
So were you tempted to just knock, like, sort of like, not necessarily head in the sand, but like, maybe actually, no, two questions.
Yeah.
Was there the head in the sand going, I'm just not going to address this? And then secondly, when you did decide to address it, were you contemplating not getting the surgery?
There was maybe an hour of, like, as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, can I call my mum? And then he called in another neurosurgeon. We had a discussion, and I left under the pretext of calling them later that afternoon to either book it in or not book it in. And it's probably an hour of me being like, this isn't happening. Like, I can ignore this. I can train through this. This will be fine. Called my mum, called my two housemates at the time, who were both doctors.
Oh, lucky. Look at that.
Yeah. And then I called one of my former housemates' dads is a big shot consultant down in Frankston, so I called him as well. So I spoke to like 7 doctors or something ridiculous. And after talking to all of them, there was really only one choice, and that was to get the surgery. If I wanted to be pain-free and live a relatively normal life, I couldn't do that without the surgery. I would have been in constant pain, and there's the risk of, I think they call it nerve death, where if you have a specific injury that's impacting nerves for too long, even if you later get the cause fixed, the nerves will still be feeling that pain.
So it's almost like a phantom limb sort of problem.
Almost like a phantom. Okay. So, like, if I wanted it fixed, I needed to do it then. And so I did.
So an hour of contemplating avoidance. Pretty and much, then look, now that it's a year later down the track, what are you still impacted by the injury? I mean, I know there's some positions with jiu-jitsu that you have to avoid because you don't want to be placed in a funny angle.
Yeah, more out of fear though, I think.
Yeah?
So I had the surgery. 3 months later, I had a follow-up with another neurosurgeon who he was like a registrar, who was just doing the follow-up check. And he was like, yeah, you're good to go. I mean, I've had football players who have had this injury and gotten back on the field, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. Nice. I was like, okay, so I asked him if there was any risk. They're like, the only risk is that you have a 10% increased chance of having the exact same injury above and below that specific joint.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, so it's something to be aware of. And he's like, yeah, try not to get stacked in jiu-jitsu, but if you do, you're probably going to be okay. So I think
10% isn't the biggest.
Isn't the biggest.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about percentages,
yeah.
It's not the biggest. So I think more than anything, the fear is mental. I definitely have moments on the mat where I'll just tap because I'm like, I don't want to be in that position.
Understandable.
Yeah.
What about just in regular life? Has on a day-to-day basis now? Do you have any sort of fears, or do you feel compromised in some positions, or just in everyday life?
Not in everyday life. It hasn't really impacted just how I go about my day specifically. The only way it's really impacted me is that I feel like I'm now the guy who's had spinal surgery.
That's what I wanted to address. In one of your blogs, blog posts, you talked about being, quote, the guy that had spinal injury.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that I want to get into, but it's basically around identity. And we talked a little bit about this before recording, but I find when people go through something, they, for example, if they've got a mental health concern like depression, anxiety, or they've gone through something like you've gone through, or, potentially like, their partner broke up with them, or they got cheated on, or, something happened. They go one of two ways. They either sort of, they let that thing become their identity, or they use it as like a growth point or a stepping stone. So that idea of you became the guy that had the spinal surgery, I just wanted to sort of, I guess, get your feelings on, but what does that actually involve? So like, what is it like to be that guy?
Yeah.
And then also, how do you not, I'm not sure the best wording here, but I suppose play the victim and sort of go, hey, I had spinal surgery, so like,
How do I not do that?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I know from personal experience, when I was in a less strong state, I would sort of divert back to, oh, well, I've got, mental health, I've had these problems, so pity me.
It's so easy to be like, I can't do that, I had spinal surgery. Like, I think, talking about identity and stuff, I think the hardest part for me was that immediately after the surgery, I was so convinced that I'd be like, all right, 12 weeks on the couch, I can do that, play a lot of video games, relax a lot, and then I'm back. I mean, I'm on the mats. And I did do that to a degree. I spent however long it was I think I spent 6 weeks total on actual bed rest. Like I wasn't allowed to lift more than 1 kilogram.
Oh my God.
Like my girlfriend.
How much does your phone weigh?
Yeah, exactly. Like literally my housemates were cooking for me. They were cleaning up after me. My girlfriend was, thing of milk is 2 kilograms.
Yeah.
I can't pour milk into my coffee.
That's, all right. Yeah, okay.
Like it's amazing how much it impacts your life. So yeah, I had a lot of people looking after me, and I was convinced that after I recovered, after 12 weeks, I'd be back on the mat, I'd be good as new, I'd be training full speed straight away. I think that's where I sort of let myself down a bit.
So I built up some expectations.
I was building up the expectations way too much, and then as soon as I got back on the mat, I was in pain. Like I'd train and I'd get through it, but I'd wake up in pain, and that's scary when you've just had surgery.
So like that post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. And I warned you before we did this that I might cry. So just
didn't get the tissues.
No, you're good. So yeah, that's so. I sort of brought it upon myself, really, having that sort of that impact on my identity, becoming that guy who had spinal surgery, and then using it as an excuse.
I mean, it is an excuse to some. Like this is
some
the
degree,
the nuance of it. Obviously, there are things you can and can't do, and there is that recovery process, and all of that stuff aside.
Yeah.
But there is that balance between, like later on, I want to talk to you a little bit more about this, about the idea of perfectionism versus just getting stuff done. Because it all sort of relates is how much do you, like, you strike me as someone that wants to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And you want to like sort of get after it, so to speak.
Yeah.
However, you've now got this thing that you can't, the thing that you have to do to get better is nothing.
Yeah.
Like the best thing you can do for yourself is nothing, and then you go to do something and you cause pain, and you're sitting there like,
Did I actually help or hinder myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the scary thing about the whole identity thing is that I've let myself become that guy, and as a result, I'm letting it impact myself. Like I'm the one who's stopping myself from being okay with doing things, and it scares me that I've let myself become that guy.
Are you finding that you're getting better at sort of, because fear's a reflex that helps us, right?
Yeah.
It helps you to like, because your body's like fuck no, don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't want this to happen again.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you find the balance between sort of letting go of that fear in a comfortable pace without throwing yourself in the deep end too much?
I haven't found that balance yet. That's where I'm at now. It's working through that position of being of essentially not only letting myself down but letting my friends down. Getting through that place of I had spinal surgery. Now that's what I identify as. I identify as the guy who had spinal surgery. It's who I am. How do I not be that guy anymore?
Yeah.
How do I be the guy who has had spinal surgery, but is also back on the mats training 5 days a week, who has had spinal surgery, but can get up in the morning and go for a run, who has had spinal surgery but is actually okay doing squats again. Like I can physically do them.
Yeah, because I remember just prior to this, maybe this is the compression.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
you were getting you're getting quite good at the squats and getting
150 for 5 I hit.
Yeah, that's well beyond what I can do.
And I think I was on bench press. I was like 85 for 5. I was so close to 100.
Getting strong.
It shits me that I didn't quite make it to 100 before I did my back. Yeah.
So, are you finding that you're seeing an improvement, or are you finding now that a year has gone past that your mental health is deteriorating? How is that side of things? Because obviously it's all the physical side. The doctors are saying you're fine, and you're acknowledging that you're worried about stuff based on a fear-based approach, basically, right? And there's multiple reasons for that, and then as we all know, mental health is linked to what you're doing physically, your mental state, your social environment, what you eat, like it's all connected.
It's a package, yeah.
So, with that in mind, how would you say your mental health is now with all of this happening?
In relation to how it was just after the surgery, I think just after surgery, immediately following the surgery, I was angry that I was sitting on a couch.
Yep.
So shortly after that, I was deluded, thinking that I could potentially be training jiu-jitsu full speed again 6 months, 6 months after. 12 months out, I've had the I've gone through what I would probably class as the biggest trough, and now I'm climbing out again. What that looks like is that I've spent months eating like crap. I have hardly exercised. I think you've seen me at the gym like 3 or 4 times in the last 3 months.
Sounds probably about
yeah.
right.
I haven't been doing any sort of lifting. My girlfriend struggles to get me out of the house to walk, and she gets really frustrated when all I want to do is spend time at home on the couch because that's what's comforting.
Yeah, of course.
Being acutely aware of that now, it does make it easier to identify the things I need to change and start changing them. But that's a super slow process, and that's something that I've only identified in the last 3 or 4 weeks, like as something that is overall detrimental and is going to be hard to change and will be slow to fix, but needs to be done.
What steps are you taking?
I started running.
Yep.
Most basic form of exercise. I used to think running was bad for you. Swear to God.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, I used to think it was horrible for you. But it's so easy to do 10 minutes around the block.
Quick jog around the block.
Yeah, around the block, quick jog. It's so easy to chuck on the pair of runners and just get after it. Straight up, I get shin splints so bad.
Yep.
So there's like my first physical hurdle that's not related to my back at all. So I've had to slow down on that a little bit. Second thing is intermittent fasting. I feel my best when I'm intermittently fasting, even if I'm eating not that great.
So like
in that
12 hour window?
I use an 8-hour window.
8-hour window, yeah.
Yeah, and generally in the morning, I'll get up. But my ideal day is getting up, having a glass of water before I drink coffee, because otherwise I'm just drinking coffee straight away. Some sort of healthy, high protein, high fat breakfast. And then I will probably only have one other meal in that 8-hour window.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're both big meals. My breakfast is huge, and then whatever I have for lunch is massive as well. And then I'm fine in the evening. Once I get into that swing, like I'm not hungry, I feel great, I don't feel bloated, and that is enough to make me mentally feel like, oh, okay, I just achieved something. Like I just
it's a win.
Yeah, it's a small win, but it's a win for sure.
I like that approach. Like I'll suggest to people like do. Like it's been suggested by so many people, like that would be like make your bed in the morning or go for that short run, or
that famous general.
Yeah. Just do that one thing, and it sets your day up for success and getting those small wins.
Yeah.
You've started writing a blog.
Yep.
So I want to talk about how writing's helped. Have you spoken to a therapist, like a psychologist, psychiatrist sort of thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was seeing a psychologist years ago before this whole thing happened, and unfortunately, he's retired.
How dare they?
How dare they? Yeah, I don't even know where he lives. God damn it. And I did see another one briefly. I only saw him like 2 or 3 times, and that was
after.
This is in the last 12 months. This was towards the end of last year. I think I saw. Oh no, started this year. It would have been January, February. And I only saw him 2 or 3 times at my girlfriend's urging because she was really starting to worry about me. And he wasn't that great. And you know how hard it is to find a good psychologist or a good therapist.
I always say, like, they're just people.
Yeah.
Just like you've had good teachers and bad teachers that you loved and hated, and other people loved and hated the ones you didn't like.
Yeah.
Keep searching.
It's really hard to find one that you click with. Is almost impossible. But this dude he wasn't great, but he was okay enough that he gave me the tools I needed to start fixing myself. He reminded me of the things that my old psychologist taught me years ago. And that was enough for me to be like, all right, well, the things I need to do are simple, like writing again, basic exercise, basic meditation. All that stuff is hard to get into your life, but once it's there, it's easy to maintain.
Like the habit building is the hard thing, but once you get it
once you get it there, it's easy to maintain. Like with writing, for instance, like I've only just started this blog, and I spent all morning before I came here writing. And it was easy because that's something that I really want to do now, and something's in my life. It's easy to sit there and just tool away at it. Just start with a blank page and see where I end up. And that sense of accomplishment when you finish it, even if it's not that good, when you finish writing whatever you're writing, you click publish and it's there. It is amazing. Like I've just created something out of nothing. It's out of my head. It's now on a website. I achieved something for today. I'm done. I'll go and eat a pizza now.
I like you've said it a couple of times, so I want to drill down upon it. It's the sense of achievement.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that you want to be able to say, or end the day, or end the session, or end a period of time with, I've achieved this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So what counts as an achievement?
I think that's relative. I think that's relative to the person. For me, an achievement is something that benefits me in the long run.
Yep.
Even if it's small, like making your bed, even if you just make your bed, or doing a lot of washing. I've achieved something for today. Cleaning the house, that's an achievement. I've just gotten into wargaming. Painting miniatures is definitely an achievement because it takes hours.
I can't stand it. I understand that.
Yeah, anything that benefits me in the long run is an achievement.
Yep.
If I decide to spend the day sitting on the couch watching TV and then order takeaway for dinner, I haven't achieved anything.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
And once you've done that for weeks or months on end, it really starts to weigh on you. And after that, small wins mean a lot.
Do you find achievements compound?
For sure, yeah.
So you get one thing done that gives you this momentum to get the next thing done,
100%.
So then, when let's say you have something happens, right?
Yeah.
Something bad happens, like you need spinal surgery, for example, and it takes you a while to come back into the groove. But being a bit more serious, I mean, well, let's say something happens, life happens, you have a bad mental health day, whatever, and you just you do nothing. You don't have an achievement day.
Yeah.
How do you get back into the groove and
start achieving again?
Yeah.
That's a loaded question. And I think it depends on what you haven't achieved. So let's say I'd spend one day on the couch doing nothing and eating takeaway. All right, tomorrow I'm going to at least walk around the block. That's enough for me to be like, all right, well, I stuffed up yesterday, but I'll get back into it tomorrow. Spend doing that for months and months and months. It's harder to be like, oh, I have to walk around the block. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's harder to get yourself out of that rut mentally. So I think it's definitely relative to
where you're at. Yep.
But for me, the things that tend to get me out of the rut the easiest are simple things. Like, all right, I'm going to eat in this 8-hour window today. And that's it.
Yep.
It's easy to do. I'll just be like, all right, I had a coffee at 8. I now have till 4 p.m. to feed myself. If I don't feed myself correctly, I'm going to be hungry in the evening, but that's life, whatever. Walking around the block, which is something my girlfriend loves doing. I don't understand why walking's a thing, but whatever. Walking around the block, that's an achievement. So that's easy to do. And if your girlfriend drags you out of the house, then you're probably going to do it. Yep. It's the simple things, and the simpler the better. When you're stuck in a big rut, the simpler the better. It's easy to get you out of there, in theory.
In theory, look, I appreciate this because my mental health goes up and down, and I'm not facing recovery from a spinal surgery. With this being that you're the spinal surgery guy, I want to get back to that.
Yeah.
But I find that for me personally, I like the idea of noticing your warning signs. So I notice that when I'm about to get, I notice the things that will happen to my mental state when a depressive or an anxiety episode is coming on. So I'll do specific things to take action to stop that. And one of those will be resting. One of those will be doing this, right? Yeah. But then I realized I would go too far the sort of protecting myself way, and I would stop doing stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get a lot done. I'm trying to exercise daily and do the whole thing, write books, get heaps of stuff done. So now my battle is battling between the feeling of like, am I being lazy? Am I recovering from mental illness, or is something else happening?
Yeah.
It's sort of trying to find that balance between like just slacking off and drive and recovery.
Sure.
The reason I want to say this is because you're struggling with, how can I put this? You want to get that attainment, that achievement for the day.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're pushing yourself too hard? How do you know if the win for the day is that you need to rest? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Because over the long term, you could go, I need to rest. And then, like you said, a month later, you've now rested for all that time and you feel like a lazy slob.
Yeah.
Even though you needed the rest at the time. And you look back, how do you...
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're right about there being two ends of the spectrum, like one being way too lazy to protect yourself or whatever, and one being way too active and actually hurting you. For me, if I'm doing too much, if I'm caring too much, I get angry.
Caring about what, sorry?
Anything. If I'm caring about work or achieving things for the day or doing too much, if I overexert myself in any way, I start to get angry. If I don't, if I'm the other end of the spectrum where I'm being too lazy and eating junk food and all that sort of stuff, I don't tend to get angry, but I will get to a point where I'm feeling flat. You could call it sad. You could call it depressed. And I want to be alone. So I've definitely, for me, that's the balance. It's where do I find the point in between wanting that alone time, being in a point of solitude, and not being too active or...
Anger.
Yeah, and yeah.
So it's finding the balance between sort of anger and lethargy.
Yeah.
And if you're sort of got a introspective ability, you mentioned meditation and that sort of stuff before, but basically you go, I'm feeling quite angry now, I've pushed it too far, or I'm feeling quite sad, depressed, whatever that feeling is, I need to push.
Yeah.
I like that approach because I'm constantly trying to find that balance myself as well.
Yeah,
And it's this thing that's it's a trying to pin down a constantly moving spectrum, but when you hit that stride where you're getting enough done, you're getting stuff done, you feel good, but you're not overtraining.
The interesting thing for me is if I do too much and get angry, I immediately shoot down to doing nothing.
I spoke to a psychologist about exactly that. I found that when I was in a good place, I would take on more responsibility, take on more, do more, and then my energy would just not be able to keep up with that constant growth of more responsibility, and then boom, I drop.
Yeah.
And now not only am I dropped in the mental state, I feel bad or guilt or whatever because I've taken all these responsibilities that I can no longer manage.
Yeah.
And the saying, "This too shall pass." I find I have to listen to that more for when I'm in a good place than for when I'm in a bad place. I know that my depression won't last forever.
Yeah.
But it feels like when I'm feeling great that it will last forever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like you're feeling good. I've got this won't necessarily last, and I want it to last. And I want to put everything in place to keep trending upwards. But I know on that upward trend that I'm having, and that you seem to be having as well, you're going to have those downward spikes. And if you don't balance that,
there's always going to be peaks and troughs. I've actually never thought about it like that. I've actually never thought about thinking of the highs as being something that will pass.
Yes,
that's probably a really healthy way to look at
it.
it.
It's more that I don't know. I've read a lot of Eastern philosophy and Buddhism, and they talk about the middle way. And it seems to apply in every bit of life. You don't want to be too low, but my God, if you're too high, you're now manic, and that's part of the reason why you're drinking coffee, I'm drinking water, is because any upper any stimulant based thing, if I have a half of your coffee, I would be jittery and through the roof, and I feel great for a bit, and then it's just too much.
Come straight down again. Yeah.
But my wife, we have Maria has 3 different types of coffee, and she's probably off to get another coffee now. She's already had 3 coffees. She's addicted to it, so each to their own, I suppose.
It's definitely my addiction for sure.
I wanted to just dig into writing a little bit more.
Sure.
You've started a blog.
Yep.
Do you want to just give out your web address and spruik yourself a bit, and then we can talk about it?
Sure. So my website's tobydcar.com, car with 2 R's, so TOBYDCARR.com, and also Toby D Carr on Twitter and Instagram.
I like it.
Simple, easy. I think I'm going to be able to remember my name for at least for a while, anyway. The blog came.
You're calling it Consider This, yeah?
I'm calling it Consider This, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was taken as a URL, so
that's fine.
Yeah.
Stuff it. You can still claim it.
Yeah, blog's called Consider This until that URL.
You're coming. Whoever Consider This, you're coming for them.
Yeah, exactly. The blog came as a product of the therapist I was talking about earlier this year. It came very delayed after talking to him. He suggested I start writing. That was January, February. It's now June, and I've just started writing. So, better late than never. And it's come as a product of a person who is very much a perfectionist. It's something that allows me to just get stuff done. I used to find writing something that was very internal, and I kept it to myself, and I wrote, and no one could read it because I didn't want anyone criticizing it, and it was never any good anyway, so why would anyone want to read it? I then turned writing into something that was like, all right, I'm just going to write something. Whoever wants to read it can. I don't really care. I'm going to put some thoughts on the page. That's what I'm thinking. Done. Next one. It's very easy for me to not look at writing as perfect because it's so malleable. So there's so many stylistic choices. I mean, grammar's a thing, but even that, there's a bit of poetic license there and interpretation for sure. So for me, it's a way to achieve something that isn't perfect and that doesn't weigh me down.
So you don't like the aspect of having to be too much of a perfectionist. For sure. And writing allows you to accomplish something but not be perfect with it.
Exactly.
Ticks all boxes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does it help your mental state?
For sure.
Yeah. I as you know, I'm a massive fan and advocate of writing. Have you tried? Because I'll suggest this to people that I have a lot of followers from India and Egypt.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about that a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But basically, I think a lot of the reason for that followership is because there's in some countries, and I don't know the full story on the ground, but what I'm getting from the people that are messaging me is basically that the mental health system in some countries is not as good as in other countries. I mean, I'm not comfortable or happy with how great it is over here.
Yeah.
But we get free sessions with a professional psychologist, and I know other countries, mental illness is effectively demonized in some. So there's a massive spectrum.
Yeah.
So for people that don't have access to professional trained therapists that they can afford, I would suggest speak to therapists, counselors online if possible.
Yeah.
But barring that, I always like to do a free writing thing, as in get a page, write for 5 minutes, just whatever comes out of your head, and just throw it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the page listens.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe you'll appreciate this sort of insight. I've been looking into a bit of a tangent, but why people get benefit from religions, from social groups, from all of these sort of things.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main benefits, religiosity aside, is the act of confession. If you like I watched Going Clear. Have you seen Going Clear?
I think so.
The Scientology documentary?
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it.
I think that was when I was really high on endo on the couch.
Watch it again when
watch it again, yeah.
But most religions have some sort of confession aspect, and I realized this watching the Scientology documentary was that Scientology is terrible, don't get me wrong, but initially the applicants would go through basically a confession process, and that would make them feel better, and they would attribute that to the glory of Scientology, which then would then be used against them because it's a cult.
Yeah.
But pick any religion, pick any sort of social thing that helps people, and they are doing some sort of confession. You go to a psychologist, and a lot of the time you're just speaking and they're just listening.
Yeah.
And I suppose to be fairly sexist, but the research suggests that women are better able to deal with thoughts of suicide and depression and that sort of stuff because it's culturally acceptable for women to open up and express their emotions, to debrief, to confess, to do whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
So I take all of that and I'm like, okay, well, how can someone particularly, a 20 to 40-year-old male, most at risk of suicide.
Yeah.
Female, anyone that doesn't have access to someone that they can talk to, that sort of stuff, can't go to their priest because, they've got different issues that doesn't gel with their religion, or they don't feel comfortable. There's a whole range of things why you wouldn't want to talk to an actual person. Yeah. Even if you're in Australia, some people don't do it.
Yeah.
Because, you're talking to a person that's judging you, or you might feel like that.
Yeah.
With all that in mind, get the piece of paper, write for 5 minutes, and just throw it out afterwards.
Burn it if you want, whatever works for you.
Chug it, flush it ceremoniously, incinerate it. Have you tried that sort of free writing approach?
I haven't recently. I did when I was straight out of high school. It was part of I studied writing straight out of high school, and it was part of one of our assessments. And I find it hard to just.
It is very hard to
stream of consciousness writing.
Not. I don't mean to just to clarify. I'm not saying to write anything of literary worth down. You're not trying to write a story or write a poem or anything.
No,
it's literally just you could be just writing I hate this activity now, but that could be the start to get you flowing.
Yeah, I find it really hard. I haven't tried it recently though, so I should probably give it a shot.
What about if you changed it, instead of writing it down, to just speaking out loud?
Yeah,
do you think that would be easier? Because the reason I'm saying this is not necessarily just for what you do, but I'm trying to give suggestions to people that don't have access to that sort of stuff. The therapists and stuff online are great, but multiple options are better, and I found benefit from writing myself. But if there's a block,
if there's you can't,
if there's a block, does it even matter though?
Yeah,
if you just try and just keep going, and you'll develop that habit as well.
Yeah, I like I think it was it Hemingway's piece of advice where you should stop with something to write? You should stop knowing where you're going.
I think that's for if he wants to write a novel, or you're writing
I find that with anything though.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure. If it's getting late in the day and you're on a roll and you're halfway through a sentence and you're like, I like where this is going, but it's actually dinner time. I'll just stop for the day and then I'll come back.
It's hard to stop. It's hard to want to stop.
It's hard to want to stop, but if you get into that habit and then come back the next day with something, that's somewhere to go. It gives you, not only do you know where you're going, so you've got 24 hours or 12 hours, whatever, thinking about where you're going. It gives you that time to add to where you're going.
I think you can get overtraining in terms of writing. When I get in a role, I'll just just binge. It's just write, and then crash. And the next day, it's like a mental health day.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm very much trying to. Maybe I should try that approach of trying to stop when I'm ahead. But it's I don't know. I feel like this is not necessarily just writing for your own mental health. Just writing writing fiction, writing blogs, writing whatever. You're on a roll. It's let's do it. Exactly. I want to get it done.
Let's get it done. Crush it.
But everything comes at a cost, and if you've read The Spoon Theory.
I haven't.
Oh my god, okay. So for anyone out there, you too. Just Google Spoon Theory, and it's basically the idea that it's very well written, and I'm going to bastardize the summary, but basically every day you have a certain amount of spoons, energy points, whatever, and every time you do something, it takes a spoon from you, or a few spoons. So, for example, let's say you're having a bad mental health day, having a shower might cost you 3 of your 10 spoons.
Yeah. Okay.
On a good day, it might cost you no spoons, right?
Yeah.
So by the end of the day, you'll find that your energy starts depleting as you get less spoons.
Yeah.
Now it's done really well. Read the blog, but the idea, it's become sort of a personal vernacular between my wife and I, and a few of our friends that are familiar with it. And now you'll understand as well.
Yeah.
But it's basically oh, hey, can you help me with this? Or what do you think about this? And it'd be I don't have the spoons for that. And it's sort of just a very quick way to acknowledge that it's that sounds great and fun, but even if you want to do it, I just don't have the energy, so to speak.
Yeah, nice.
It's not physical energy, but it's just that sort of mental stuff.
Yeah.
So if you push too hard, if I write for too long, if you overtrain, you're taking tomorrow's spoons for today.
Yeah.
Thus, you need the next day to recover.
Yeah, you won't be able to eat tomorrow's pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. That's a really good way of actually of visualizing it and
it's read the blog.
And communicating it. So I'll have to read it.
Can't remember who did it, but just Google Spoon Theory, and it's widespread. It's incredible. Right, it was written for people with chronic pain, but it's very applicable to anyone with any sort of invisible illness, like mental illness, physical pain, that sort of stuff. But I think it applies just as people, because everything's on a spectrum, and everyone goes up and down unless you're some superhuman person.
Yeah. David Goggins.
So I want to wrap it up, but I just want to just touch on your most recent blog, if you're cool with that, because it's topical for stuff happening in the news, and I've got an experience, helping in this direct field. So if you want to give just a very brief summary of what's happening and what your take on it is, and then we can discuss from there.
So, I mean, basically my most recent blog post was about the treatment of women in society.
Yep.
I actually started writing that piece as I wanted to be gender neutral, and I wanted to write about personal safety, because I think that is really important. We've both practiced different martial arts for basically the entirety of our lives. Self-defense is really important. But once you become aware of your personal safety, once you get to a point where you are aware, you're texting your friends and family, letting them know.
So let's just give some context. What has happened? What prompted you to write the blog that happened very recently?
The murder of the young woman in Princess Park in Melbourne. Yep. She was walking home. She's 22 years old, walking home from a comedy gig, and was raped and murdered.
Yeah.
At middle of the night.
And understandably, that's caused a public outcry.
A public outcry about the attitude of our country towards women, and gender inequality.
Yeah.
The main cause of that outcry was because a superintendent of Victoria Police said the same day that people should be aware of their personal safety, which is true. People should be aware of their personal safety. It was a poorly timed message, pretty insensitive to say that straight after a young woman's just been raped and murdered. And if it had come from a female superintendent, I'd wonder how much the public outcry would have been. If it had been similar. But once you're at a point, which I believe we are as a society, where you're acutely aware of your personal safety, what more can you do? Evil's always going to be out there. There's always going to be people who are going to be raping and killing and murdering and assaulting, and all that stuff isn't going to exist, unfortunately, in our world. That's just the world we live in. So what can we do as a society to change our attitudes, educate our citizens, and minimize the impact that our attitudes have on the murder and killing of not only women but everyone?
My take's quite nuanced, and we were looking at.
It's definitely not black and white.
It's not black and white. I think, like, when I train people with self-defense, men and women alike, what I would say is I would love to live in the ideal world where bad stuff doesn't happen. That's my goal, and I will advocate and push, and like you've written this piece, it's well written, and it's pushing for, basically just to help society.
Yeah, exactly.
And you would love to move towards an ideal society, and that can be slowly pushed by education and all that stuff that we're saying.
Yeah.
However, we don't live in an ideal world.
It's never going to be perfect.
Unfortunately, it never will, and anyone that says that we can fix every problem is either lying or they're ignorant, because to make someone's utopia is someone else's dystopia. So if you were to make the world completely 100% safe, you're now taking away a bunch of freedoms in another aspect. And that same debate goes to, drugs legalized or not legalized. How much should the government spy on you? There's a whole plethora of this sort of stuff. So
it's about where you fall on that spectrum.
Exactly. So my take on it is that, for one, it's terrible and disgusting, and I would love to feel like people could walk completely safely, and there are some areas and places and parts of the world and of Melbourne and all that sort of stuff where you can, and there's some parts where you can't as safely. I talked to my wife about this, and we're of a similar opinion, and it's basically that we would love to and work for and push for an ideal world, but we have to live and act in the world that we're living in. And it's fairly controversial, particularly coming from a guy, but I will teach everyone to be able to defend themselves, to be able to be aware. I've got a young son. He's a year and a half. Now, what's the biggest risk for his physical safety when he's growing up? It's when he's like, the most chance of violence occurring from another male, is at a place where there's a lot of males there and they're drinking. Nightclub violence, right?
For sure.
So there's a couple of options I've got for him. I can either hold him back and say no. I can try and close down all the nightclubs ever. Or I can make him be aware that when he's at those places, there is an increased risk of danger, because alcohol and young men creates violence.
Yeah.
That being said, he will probably want to do that. So let's address all of this nuance here.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to really dig down to without risking saying the wrong thing and that sort of quote mine approach of stepping up. But I think when you get like both sides of the media saying, all men need to do X or all women need to do Y, both of those approaches, in my opinion, are too. It's too black and white. The solution isn't to say like every man should do this or every woman should do that or every anything should be anything.
Yeah.
There's so much nuance. It could be cultural. It could be, socioeconomic. It could be the impact of drugs. It could be education. It could be, any number of variables that I can't possibly fathom.
Yeah.
To say,
I agree with you to a degree that it's counterproductive for the media to say all men or all women, mainly because when you say all men, for some reason, us as men take it personally. And I'm sure it happens for women as well. But I was definitely in the not all men camp until very recently, because when someone would say all men do X, I'd be like, but I don't. So how do all men do that? And it's not about all men specifically, like all men individually. It's about where we're at as a society. You've got to play the majority.
Like the average male, or
the average male. To say that the average male doesn't, in some way. Well, obviously, the average male doesn't sexually harass, abuse, rape, and kill. But I can guarantee that I have sat there silent while I've had friends make jokes about sexual harassment, or been in a club where a mate's hit on a girl and probably gotten a little too physical, or anything like that. So if the majority at this point is male violence against women, if that's the majority of where domestic violence or sexual violence is coming from, we've got to target that. We've got to minimize that first, and then talk about.
I see the approach you're saying.
Yeah.
I'll maybe give me this analogy. Maybe I look at militant vegans pushing everyone to be a complete vegan from the start.
Yeah.
And I look at that and go, you've got no chance of doing that because it's too much of a massive jump.
For sure.
And my approach would be like, well, why don't you instead push people towards more ethical eating, more, organic farming, more, humane, quote unquote, practices? Their response is, but, the animals are still dying. And the counter to that is but if you want to get to the ultimate goal of everyone being vegan, then you have to slowly work the society there.
Exactly.
Is that sort of what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. So you've got to slowly educate men and break down those walls of not all men.
Yep.
And we've got to hold, us as individuals have to hold everyone accountable if we all want to live the same, safe.
If you see something happening, make it happen.
Exactly. We've got to be living in a world not just for women or just for men, but for everyone.
Yeah.
For LGBTQI people, for children. Like the biggest risk at the moment when it comes to physical violence and safety is to women and children.
Yeah.
So we've got to educate ourselves and address the attitudes towards women and children before we fix other things in relation to domestic violence or rape. Yes, domestic violence, men on men, women against men.
There's a distinct way in which there's one certain group that in general does things to one other certain group.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like that's the statistic right now.
Yeah.
So we have to address that.
I very much appreciate a statistic-based approach.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to a specific and a nuance. The problem is with the news media, unless you have like a longer form discussion like we are now, and unless you can sit down and talk with people, you get the sound bites of like, well, how can you disagree with, you should teach men not to rape. If you say, no, I disagree with that statement because of, you don't get to say the because of, because now you are just an absolute asshole. It's terrible. Exactly, but I do agree with that statement. However, how do you go about that? How do you get that approach? And that not all men thing, I whenever anyone lumps a group of people together, there's that risk of people stepping back and going, well, yeah, I'm not a part of that, or I don't do that. And then now you've initially created this division of this us versus them narrative. Yeah. And this happens in every field. So like right now it's topical with this subject, but it's topical with mental health, for sure. with every topic. It becomes this, left and right wing.
Yeah. And in relation to this particular situation, when you do lump all men in together, men do get scared. Men are afraid to talk up because they don't want to be called out. They're scared of being called out. They don't want to be the guy who gets harassed or the guy who's like breaking with the herd. And men are scared to defend themselves. They don't want to be that not all men guy.
There's so much stigma that comes in with all this, and there's so much nuance that needs to be in play.
Yeah.
I know of a couple of instances of guys being falsely accused of rape. And I know of a couple of instances of females being sexually assaulted by their partners, both of which it's tricky situations that require so much more nuance than the typical sound-based approach.
Yeah.
All of this in mind, I'll suggest, what did you call the blog? Consider your personal
safety.
Consider your personal safety. So what I'll do, maybe I'll link to that blog post.
Yeah, sure. Please do.
And then from there you can read about your spinal surgery.
Yeah.
And what was the other one you posted?
The other one was basically about why I'm doing this. Only because I had a bunch of questions about why would you start a blog? It's so narcissistic. I was like, yeah, but it's not about me. It's about working through things personally. So, you know. I read something, I can't remember the quote, but it was something along the lines of like, that's all been said before, yes, but it hasn't been said by you. Yeah, exactly.
You know, so you'll have your own thing. So maybe we'll finish up here, but defer the further discussion on the the violence against women, that sort of stuff, to have a read of your blog, check it out, contact you if you want.
If you have anything to say, post in the comments, give me a message, do what you like.
100%.
Yeah.
I would just say that for me personally, I would suggest that everyone just takes a realistic look at the world, and not from both perspectives, as in realistically look at what your risks are, but also how not risky life is. Because when something like this happens, don't get me wrong, I've been the victim of sexual assault from older people when I was young, so I am in this sense a victim in this as well. However, it's easy to look at the news and go, oh my God, everything's terrible. However, what I try and suggest and what I try and do myself is to be aware of all of the stuff that's happening, but then look at my own life and see what's actually happening in my life.
Yeah.
So prepare for the worst, prepare for the real world, do what you need to do, but step back, detach, meditate on it and go, well, what is my life actually like? Am I actually stressed? Am I actually okay? How am I actually feeling right now? Who in my life is in danger and has been, impacted?
Yeah.
And that will give you a balanced approach to look at what you need to sort of prepare for.
Yeah.
And, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, those sort of things, but also what's actually happening in your life and not being projected to you by a fear-mongering, 24-hour news cycle that's like, fear this, watch this, fear this, watch this. Oh.
The way I like to look at it is with your front door, essentially. So, like, when I'm inside my house, I'm going to be doing my own thing. I'm going to be worrying about me. I'll be working on my own problems. As soon as I open the door and step outside, I've got the world to deal with.
Nice.
Yeah. That's just the way I look at it.
Chuck a lock on your door and you're fine.
In theory, yeah.
Okay, just very quickly. Favorite book?
Oh, Jesus. Old Man in the Sea, I guess.
Which one's that, sorry?
Old Man in the Sea.
Old Man in the Sea. I've not heard of that.
It's Hemingway.
I'm not...
I think that's what it's called. I hope that's what it's called. That's embarrassing.
That on the spot.
Not. Yeah.
I try to read, the classics, and I've got a few friends that like, oh, you should read this, you should read that, and my brother's reading like Anna Karenina, and I've got a mate reading
that's a task.
the Dante's Inferno and all these sort of things, and I'm just like, I can't that style of writing I can't gel with. I'm going away to Japan soon, and I'm going to take War and Peace with me.
Wow.
Because I'm gonna I'm going to Japan, then I'm going to Russia.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whilst in Russia, I'll get the the Russian reading done, right? Just have a bit of cultural experience there.
For sure.
So I'll push through it and report back. But
I loved Hemingway as a young man, which is typical of a young man. And that book's just always been that, and I love Steinbeck as well. And there's one book in particular, but I can't remember the title.
Metamorphosis.
No, that's Kafka.
Okay. I've read.
What was he had a really Of Mice and Men, of course.
Oh.
I love Of Mice and Men as well. But yeah,
School forced you to read though.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, but it's the school
really,
book.
Yeah, I actually really liked it.
Okay, last one. Movies. Favorite movie.
Fifth Element. Chicken.
I love Fifth Element. Yeah. All right. On that note, we'll call it. So if people want to contact you, TobyDCarr.com. I'll put a link down below, and you're on social at TobyDCarr. That's on Twitter and Instagram.
Correct. Yeah.
Thanks for
having me, my dude. Cheers.
Done. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to show your appreciation, there's a couple of things that you could do. the best thing would be to review it wherever you're listening to it. So chuck us that 5-star review, explain why you like it, explain how it's helping you, explain why you're enjoying it, and share it with people. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. If you share my work or any work that's about mental health, mental illness, and recovery stigma reduction, it says to the world that you are someone that's comfortable talking about that sort of stuff. This will help other people to see that you're comfortable talking about it, and they may come to you if they need that support. So review this podcast online, share it around, and if you really want to support me, I would love if you could check out my Patreon. Patreon's a way that people can provide a monthly contribution to support the content creators that are doing stuff that they enjoy. All I'm asking for is $1 per month. $1 per month on your end is basically unnoticeable, but if a bunch of you get together on my end, it'll make up a massive difference. It'll mean that I'll be able to produce more podcasts like this one, I'll be able to do more videos, write more books, and just get more content out there. The reason I like this approach is that it's a small way of giving back to people that are putting out that content for free that you're consuming. Like I said, I'm going to keep putting this out for free, but if you want to give me something back and you can afford that $1 per month, please check me out, patreon.com/ZachPPhillips. I'll put the link to that below. And if you haven't already, I need to mention once again my 2 books. My first one, Under the Influence, that's the story of my childhood. Basically, I share what it was like growing up as the son of an addict, paranoid schizophrenic, chronic hoarder, and a drug dealer for a father. In it, I share those sort of more poignant and embarrassing and traumatic moments. I wrote it as an act of therapy, but I'm sharing it as an act of sort of stigma reduction and trying to help people who are or who have gone through a similar childhood to mine. The second book that I've released is called Upgrade. It's a short sci-fi anthology, basically 11 short stories in the same universe where I look into a sci-fi dystopic future where humans have integrated with technology. And in this future, basically, I've set it up so humans have diverted into 2 separate species almost. Those who integrate with technology and sort of become one with technology, and those who prefer to stay natural, as in non-integrated. It's a good read. I'm pretty proud of it. I'll put the links to that below. But like I said, just any comments, ideas, anything you want me to talk about, please let me know via social media at Zach P. Phillips. That's ZACPPHILLIPS on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Vero, Pinterest, YouTube, everywhere. Thank you.